But monetary, and by the way, monetary unit sampling is dollar unit is in the US, but it could be obviously it could be in euros or Deutschmarks that are in whatever it is. Okay. I don't even have Deutschmarks anymore. So monetary unit sampling, it's like I say, it's only for auditing. There are some times that it's really useful, and there's sometimes that it's not. So it's kind of a hit or miss as far as when when to use it. But for for what it's good for, it's really good for it. And that is finding overstatements. And the idea is that what it does is it kind of breaks up a population into a bunch of smaller populations, and then takes a sample of one for that smaller group of that population. And you notice it was called dollar unit or monetary unit sampling. Each dollar represents one item in the sample. So if you have something that costs $53, that's like 53 items in the sample. And any one of those items can be picked. Another item that has $3,000, that's 3,000 items. Any one of those items in that sample, those 3,000 can be picked. So that's why they call it that, monetary unit sampling is for each unit, it's considered part of the sample. And there are some strange things about it that we'll talk about. So let's go ahead and get started. And again, this is something it's only for auditing. Okay. So monetary unit sampling. All right, so here is the stuff that the client has given us that tells us what they have in their accounts receivable. So each item here has a book value. And this middle one here is called a cumulative total, and that's just adding all these up. So for instance, the first one is 500. The second one would be 500 plus the 200. So it's cumulative, it's adding them up. So 500 plus 700 plus the 600 would be, all together would be, yeah. I'm gonna make it a mess up. All right, you. Item. There we go. So all those together, so this keeps adding them all up. And there's $5,000 worth of stuff in the accounts receivable. So the book value of that is 5,000. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do with this. Let me switch camera. Dracula light, stop sharing. Okay. So kind of like this. We're going to take those $5,000 in the accounts receivable, and we're going to split it up over 5 items. So I get 5 items and we're gonna split this up. So this will be each chunk that we'll have will be $1,000. And we call these intervals. So we're going to take this $5,000, split it up, and we're going to use 5 items. What we're going to do is pick one item to represent this entire interval. And same thing here, one item for this entire interval and one for this entire interval. And it's how we choose these items, it's kind of interesting. Okay, so what we're going to do is look at our cumulative value. And we're going to look for the item that crosses the first $1,000. So we're looking for the item that crosses the first $1,000 of the cumulative total. So which item puts us over 1,000?
The item number 3.
Yep. So this is the one that crosses that line. So the first one is 1,000. Which one crosses the $2,000 mark?
Seven.
Actually, 6 crosses, 7 does cross one. 7 crosses the 3,000. 6, right? Let's see. So 6 crosses 2,000. 7 crosses 3,000. So yes, we do have 7 in there. Which one crosses 4,000?
9.
Yep. Well, there's 1,000. There's the one that crosses 2,000. Give me there. I'll bet this is the second. Yeah. So 9 crosses the 3,000. Or I said that wrong. 4,000. And then the last one crosses the 5,000. Okay. So these are the items that we're going to use to represent that entire interval. So the first 1,000 will be represented by item 3. Oh, I didn't do the interval. Find the interval. The entire book value was 5,000 divided by 5 items. Oops. Put it on that first. That's kind of like what this is. So we have 5 items, and each one can be 1,000. Okay. Okay, so select item for our sample. So our first item will be 3. Six. Oops. 7. 9, 10. But yours isn't goofy like mine. Is yours formatted right? It look like this? I think this is supposed to. Hopefully it is. All right, so what we're gonna do is say, okay, so we know which items we're gonna pick here. These are the items we're gonna pick, so now I'm just gonna put them in right here. That right now. So 3, 6, 7, 9, and 10. Okay, so this is what we're gonna end up doing is it's sort of like we're gonna do the regular we're gonna the mini kind of like the ratio analysis audit over book. We're gonna take a ratio there and we're gonna multiply it by the interval. We're gonna say that the entire interval is misstated if at all by that one item. So that one item we're going to use as for that entire sample, and it's going to be sort of like the ratio analysis one from classical sample. Audit divided by book, no, it'll be off by a ratio. Okay. All right, so let's look at number 3 here. The audit value is 600. And the book value is 600. Okay, so we'll put those in here. So this is 600 for the audit. And the book is 600. We're going to multiply that by the interval, 1000. The projected value of that interval is 600 divided by 600 is just 1 times that. So that's the projected value is 1000. And this interval is not misstated at all. There's no misstatement. The audit and the book value are exactly the same. We're going to say that entire interval is okay. No projected misstatement. Okay, let's find some more interesting. Okay, let's go to number 6. The audit value, excuse me, is 560. So this is what we go out and look, and we find that it's 560. The book amount is 800. Check and make sure I got that. I'm going to do these in different colors. There. Like the book one's yellow. And let's make the audit ones turquoise. Okay. All right, so let's see. So this would be turquoise. And this would be yellow. Okay, so 560 divided by 800 times 1,000. Uh-oh. McLaren calculator. All right, so 560 divided by, back here. 560 divided by 800 is
2.7.
okay, so points that, so the projected value would be what, 700? So we're saying that, we're using this one item for the entire interval. And we're saying that everything is off in that interval by the same amount, by the same ratio, I should say. So the projected value of that interval is 700 instead of 1,000. So how much is this interval misstated by?
300.
So this is misstated by 300. So we can pick the one item in there. All right. Go ahead and do the next one. 7, 450, and 452. Okay. This one looks like everything is okay. 450 divided by 450 is just 1, so this is projected value is just 1,000. This statement is 0. Okay, let's go to number 9. The audit value is 300 and the book value is 750. Okay, that's different. 40%, so what is that? The projected value of that is 400, so the statement is
600.
yep. And the last one is 900. 900. Okay, so that one's pretty copy this. Yeah, I can't. 900 and ooh. Go page 2. Okay, so in these 100. And what we're really looking though for is a misstatement here, and that's 900. Okay. So our projected misstatement is 900. So this is the kind of the basis for what we're doing in our for monetary unit sampling. And a big part of it is the large important part of it is how do we pick the ones that we put in our sample? You know, so it's always you're going past the cumulative total. The ones that go past the cumulative total are the ones that you're taking for your sample. Now, there are a few things about this that are important to note. First of all, this projected misstatement, is this an overstatement or an understatement?
It's it's an overstatement.
Yep, it's an overstatement. So this is an overstatement. And here is the thing about monetary unit sampling. It's only good for overstatements. It's not good for understatements. I'll tell you why in a second. So one of the quirks is that it's only good for the by the way, there's no McLaren calculator. It's orange. McLaren. All right. The old McLaren curve. Okay, so kind of visualizing what's happening. So the item that crosses that interval is the one that you pick. Now, here's the thing. Here's where it gets, where the picking of the sample becomes important. Are you more likely to pick a large dollar item or a small dollar item to cross that interval? You know, are you more likely, would a $500 item be more likely to cross that interval, or a $5 item? Which one is more likely to cross the interval?
The 500.
Yeah, larger items, excuse me, are much more likely to get caught. And they get caught based on their dollar size. That's what we call it, monetary per unit, or the other term, probability proportional to size. Something that is $5 versus 500, the $500 one is 100 times more likely to get picked. We're not saying the $5 one won't get picked. It might if it's the one that puts us over, but it's less likely. So it's the ones we pick are generally larger ones. This is consistent with somebody trying to overstate their books, right? If they are increasing those dollar amounts, it's going to increase the likelihood that you catch it. And in the case we just had, if they would increase one of those, fraudulently increase one to over 1,000, it's 100% sure we would catch it because it would cross the interval. So it's a very good one for overstatements. And the more they cheat on the books, the more likely they're going to get caught. And if they do it enough, if they go over that interval, and they won't know what that interval is. If they go over that interval, it's 100% sure they'll get caught. So that's the beauty of this method. It's for overstatements. And the more that someone overstates it, the more likely it's gonna get caught. Conversely, understatements, this method does not work. If they decrease the amount, let's say liabilities, they decrease the amount, it's less likely to get paid. If they decrease it down to zero, there's zero chance of it getting paid. So this is not good for understatements. It doesn't work at all. In fact, we're going to find out that we completely ignore understatements. It's only good for overstatements. So it's good for overstatements, and it's very good at that, because the more that someone overstates something, the more likely to get caught. And they do it to a certain extent, it's 100% sure it'll get caught. But even if they do it over multiple accounts, the likelihood of those accounts is increased every time they increase. If they increase the account from 500 to 600, they just made it more likely that item's going to cross an interval and it's going to get picked. And if they do that over 10 accounts, all 10 of those accounts are more likely to get picked. So it's really good at overstatements. It's pretty much worthless at understatements. Okay, now choosing the sample size is very important, because this indicates what the interval is going to be. And so there is a formula for doing it. And this is the first time we're going to see our wacky new tables for, oh, it already is bold. It doesn't look pretty bold. That we're going to use with our method we have. All right. Choosing the sample size. And this is going to look a little bit archaic, a little bit tedious or whatever, but it's actually not that bad, and it's actually much easier than classical sample. Okay. So here is our sample size, is our total book value. Go ahead and highlight these as like so total book value. So here is our total book value. Reliability factor, we don't know what that is yet. Tolerable misstatement. So this is the amount that you will allow this account to be off by. 150,000. So what you're saying is if it's off by less than 150,000, you're okay with it. If it's off by more, you're not okay. And expected misstatement. This is probably what, maybe like what we did last year. If we found out that it was off by 10 last year, maybe that will be what we put in there. But this is the expected misstatement, what we expect it to be off by. So this is our formula we have. And we don't have these other ones. Well, let's go ahead and fill in what we have. Okay, so the total book value is 2,400,000. Our tolerable misstatement is 150. And our expected misstatement is 10,000. Okay. Now we have to find these other two. So we can find the reliability factor at 0 overstatements and the expansion factor. I have to plug those in. Okay, so let's go down here. Okay, reliability factors, and this is just a table that they use for it. Oops. And right down here, it tells us that row 0 is used for the reliability factor for sample size and for basic precision, which we'll get to later. Okay, so we're gonna be at row 0. So here's row 0. And we are looking for this at incorrect acceptance rate of 5%. Coming down here, we have 5%. And so this will be our risk of incorrect acceptance will be 3.00. That's what we'll multiply the top by. That line there should be thicker. Why isn't it? There's a line there. So this is all in the top, 2.4 million times 3, and on the bottom we'll have 150 times 10. Okay, expansion factor. Expansion factor is easier than the reliability factor because there's only one row. All right, now I would encourage you to do this first. So there's 150,000 minus 10 times this. I'm gonna do that first. 10,000 times 1.6 is 16,000, right? I'm gonna make that mean, I guess. So, okay, so let's take a look here. So 2.4 million, 2,400,000 times 3 is, get out your McLaren orange calculators, or your phone. So 200,000. And 150,000 minus 16,000 is. It is 134. Okay, so this is going to be our sample size. How many items do we have in our sample? And we're gonna round it to the nearest one, so I got 53.7. 73, so I'm gonna round that. Obviously, we can't take 0.73 of an item, so we're gonna round that to the nearest. 54. Oop. So we're gonna take 54 items. Okay. So this is gonna be our sample size. It's right there. Okay, so this is our sample size 54 items. Okay, so when we go to the interval, we're gonna take our total book value, 2.4 million. And divide it by 54 items. And we'll come out with some number. And it's a wacky one. I'm going to round it up to the nearest dollar. It's 44. $44,444. Sorry about that. I actually changed the numbers on this one from last time, and well, hey, that's what we got. So that's going to be our interval. So the first item that passes 44,444 is the one we pick. The next one that passes 88,888, the next one we pick. One 133,000, well, you get the idea. So every 44,444, we'll pick an item. And if the client ever, what are these anyways? Don't say what they are. Whatever they are. If they're, for instance, if they're accounts receivable, if they were to increase in accounts receivable over 44,444, it would 100% sure be that it would be caught. Good for them. All right, let's pick a sample size again. And by the way, that I'm gonna go back to this row for just a second. Part of the beauty of this method too, is that it actually picks the sample for you. Right? I mean, you remember for classical sampling, we had the random number table, and take the first two columns and you go down and you find the ones that match up with 1 through 30. We did all that. You don't need that for this method. This method, it tells you how many to take, and it tells you which ones to take. So it tells you the number that you need, but it also tells you which ones you're picking. And you're picking the ones that cross that interval. So you don't have to worry about a random number table or anything like that, and making sure that whoever comes and checks your work is using the same random number table or generator or whatever. Everyone will pick the same exact one because they'll get the same interval, and that interval, whichever one crosses that interval, will be the one that they pick. Okay, let's go ahead and do number 3. Now be careful on this one, because the risk of incorrect acceptance on this one is 10. So be careful with this, and that when you come down here, we're going to use 10%. for these. And by the way, this is a judgment call, do you use 1%, 5%, 10%? It's a judgment call. Sampling does not take judgment out. It just quantifies it. Okay. Okay. $100,000 minus 7,500 is 92,500. I got 124, 86, 86. So 5 million in our total, we're divided by 125 items. Hey, this one I think comes out nice and clean, doesn't it? Yeah. So our interval will be 40,000. That's a nice clean interval. Yeah, maybe too clean. Is that what you guys got?
Yes.
All right, good. Okay, so that's how we find the sample size. You're gonna get one of those on the test, obviously. And again, this is really one of the best parts about this monetary unit sampling is how easy it is to, I mean, it's clunky because it was the first time we're going through it, but how easy it is to pick a sample of items, you know, and it tells you the interval and whichever ones pass those are the ones that you pick. And there's no random number table, there's no trying to decide which row or column to start with or any of that kind of stuff. I think I'm gonna stop here because the next thing we're gonna go into is a little bit kooky, but I'll leave this up and let's say be back at 7. This is, oh, breakdown, this is 3. Okay. Okay, now for the odd part about this method. Again, it's very good for what it does, but there are some quirks to it. And we're gonna go over those. And the quirks come from putting it into kind of a, I don't say it, change canvas here. It's sort of the well, let's take that first one. Let's take the very first thing we did. Remember way back, we had the $5,000 of accounts receivable. And my camera started. And we said that it was misstated by 900.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it kind of looks like this. So this is our best estimate as far as what is misstated by. Now, it is possible that it's misstated by more. Now, this is only for overstatement. So we're, a bell curve, normal bell curve would go both ways, but this is only for overstatement. So it's kind of like going this way. That it could be misstated by even more. And we'll find out that one of those things is called basic precision, which is just if there are no, even if there were no errors found, it might still be off by something because the sample, we didn't take 100%. So if there's no errors, there's a certain amount that it could be off by because it's a sample. If there were errors, it could be off by even more. So this is what we're looking at, and I don't know what those would be. I mean, don't have enough information to do it on these, but anyway, it's so if there's no errors, it could be off by a certain amount. And if we don't find any errors in our sample, that's what it would look like, like that. If there are errors, it could be off by even more. And so that's what we're talking about. And this is what they call the incremental allowance. And the idea being that if you have errors, it's more likely that you're going to have a larger, probably there could be something wrong here. So errors will make it an increased possibility that there is something amiss. Okay, let's see how this cookie thing works out. So this is what they call about incremental allowance. We'll talk about that in a second. Here is an important one. Understatements are ignored. If the book value is equal to or larger than the interval, then we actually go to what the actual misstatement is. We'll talk about that in a second. So if it's larger than the interval, we'll talk about it. Okay, let's see how these things work out. Okay, the first three here, I think, are well behaved. Oh. The interval's 40. I just took this. So 800,000 divided by a sample size of 20 items will give us the 40,000? Yeah, $40,000 interval. Okay, so the first one, the audit value is, by the way, this is kind of how they show it on the CPA exam. Actually showed, yeah, some of that. Or I should say that's why they showed it. Okay, so 12,000 divided by 20, then whatever that is. And 40. Okay, so 24,000 was the projected, then the projected misstatement is 16,000. Check there. Okay, next one. 9,100 divided by 3,100. No, 3,000. Statement's 12,000. What'd you get for number 3? What's the projected value? Anyone?
0.
Statement is 40,000. Okay, now there's these last 3 are wacky. What is odd about number 4? What's different about number 4, for instance, than for number 1? What's different about it?
The book value is less than the audit value in number 4.
This is understatement. Yeah. Okay, so this is an understatement. Understatements are ignored. We ignore them. The projected misstatement is 0. Predicted value, probably don't need to put this in, but everything's fine. Now, as an auditor, you know, when you come across something that's misstated, you get that audit mentality saying, well, wait a minute, this is wrong. This is, but in this method, we ignore it. We're not supposed to find it using this method. So when we do find it, we simply ignore it. So there is no projected misstatement for number 4. So that's a little bit wacky. You know, usually when you find errors, you do something with it, but in this case, you wouldn't. You might tell the client, oh, by the way, you know, you probably tell them all about, you know, which of these accounts are off, just so they can look into it. But as far as projected misstatement, it has nothing to do. We're looking for overstatements and find an understatement we can correct. Okay, now 5 and 6 are kind of exceptions that we have a little bit. And that is that the book values are greater than the interval. Okay, so a couple things. First of all, it's 100% sure you're going to pick these items. If you have a book value of 44,000, it's 100% sure you're going to pick it because it's going to cross at least one interval, and it might actually cross a second one. It's possible, you know. It's up by 44,000, so it's definitely going to cross 140,000 interval. Depending on where it's at, though, it might even cross 2. So we're definitely going to pick this one. Okay, now here's the strange thing about it. When it's bigger than the interval, we use the actual misstatement, not the projected misstatement. And there's a reason for that. If you actually work through the projected misstatement, it would decrease the projected misstatement. In other words, the known amount of misstatement would be reduced. If we use a projected one, it would understate the. This is not completely stupid. It would understate the overstatements. Let me just show you. Okay, so this is completely covers this interval. At this point, we're going to look to find the actual misstatement. Merge all these. So what I'm going to do is take book value of 11,000. Stretch that. The book value is 44,000. And I'm going to subtract the audit value of 11,000. And so this will get our actual misstatement. Of 33,000. We're going to put that in for our projected misstatement. It's actually an actual misstatement, but we're going to put that in here. The actual amount that is misstated by. you were to do the projected misstatement, it would be 30,000, I think. And notice that kind of like ironically that, you know, that would be actually reducing the amount of the actual misstatement. You know, usually when you do projections, you take a small amount and it's projected over the larger population. If you were to use the projected value in this case, you'd have a larger population or a larger sample being projected on a smaller population. So you just use the actual amounts. It would be reducing the amount of actual. And yes, it's strange, but that's if you wanted to do the projected value, whatever 40,000 minus 33 is, you don't really need that, but we're gonna look at the projected statement. So this is the 33,000. And the second one here, this one would go at least 2 intervals, possibly 3, same thing. You take your book value, you get the actual. Ooh. Gotta merge my cells first. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, so the actual book value is 90,000 for this one. Minus the audit value of 65,000. What's 90 minus 65? 25? 25,000. So whenever you have this, that the change the font. Okay, so when the book value is greater than the interval, then use the actual mistake. So the book value greater than the interval. Okay, so total projected misstatements. Or we'll just so 16 plus 12 plus 40 plus 30.
And then 126.
126. So this would be the total issue misstatements. The projected misstatements. What's the total book value? And these are always overstatements. The projected value would be 800,000 minus 126. 674 maybe. 674, I think that's it. Okay. And you're saying, wow, that's wacky. It can't get any wackier than that. Yes, it can. And it can get wackier because we have this incremental allowance. Okay, so incremental allowance. This is kind of a theoretical idea that if there's evidence that an interval is misstated and it's the book value is not more than the interval, it could be stated by more because there could be more things in that interval. For instance, let's take the second one here. There's 3,000 was the book value. Well, the total book value for that interval is 40,000. So there's 37,000 more stuff. And if there's already an error there, there's a possibility that it could be more. And the size of the errors matter. You know, something that's misstated by $1,000 will have less of an impact than something misstated by 40,000, right? So the larger the error, the more serious it is. And, you know, if you think about like what kind of errors do you expect that the client would detect? Well, small errors might be difficult for them to detect, but certainly larger ones would be. So the larger they are, the more likely it is it's misstated. Okay, so camera. All right, so these errors, these are what we're talking about, these incremental errors. The more errors you have, the more likely that it will be misstated. Now, if the interval is completely covered by the book value, it can't be misstated by any more than it already is. But for those that are not, we can go into this, what they call incremental, that there could be more things wrong. So let me show you how this works out. And included in the incremental allowance, these first three are yeses. Because there could be more things wrong in that interval. There could be more wrong here. Oops. Number 4, there's nothing wrong with number 4. So that one is, we ignore it. We say everything's fine. We don't worry about that one. And coming down here, these last three, including these last 2, are no's. This interval could not get any worse. It's covered completely by the 44,000. So there could be nothing additionally wrong with that interval. It's not going to be an incremental allowance. And that's one of the reasons why we're using the actual misstatement. It couldn't be any more wrong than it already is. So these show possibilities of being additional things being wrong, whereas these two, while they do have errors, they have misstatements, they couldn't get any worse. All right. We are going to do the most confusing thing you'll see in this entire class. We're going to do monitoring and sampling. This one is actually very similar to an actual CPA. I think that's not me. It doesn't mean like Dracula. Okay. Do we meet on the 31st? If we do, I'll do I'll do it all in Dracula. If we do if we have a meeting on the 30th. Okay, I'm moving around, I forgot what I was talking about. Stupid. Oh, I know what I was talking about. Hit me again. On the CPA exam. The CPA exam was an open exam. I know I probably already told you guys. The CPA exam was an open exam until 1996. And I think I told you this. You go take the exam, they'd give you a answer sheet and the exam itself. You'd fill out the answer sheet, hand the answer sheet to them. The actual exam itself, you would have a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you would put it in there and hand it to them. And at the end of the exam, they would actually email you. Not email, they didn't have email. They would actually, when I took it, they would actually snail mail it. You get in your mailbox, the actual exam you took, and you get to go through and see what you should have put down rather than what you did put down. So anyway, it was an open exam. All the CPA exam questions, you could study actual CPA questions, all the exams going all the way back. Anyway, the nice thing is, when it comes to things like statistics, those haven't changed. Classical sampling has been around for 100 years or more. Probably proportional size, probably been around for 40 or 50 years. So there are tons of actual CPA questions when it comes to sampling that are they're actually there's nothing has really been done. So my point being is that you can actually get for statistics, you can actually get very similar questions in the CPA reviews. Okay, so let's see how this thing works. All right, let's go through these. So let's go incorrect acceptance. Okay, we got that. Now book value. That later. So let's go through these. So audit value, book value, and here's the interval. So what's the projected value for the first one? And the projected mistake. Maybe the projected mistake is more important. Anyone? What's the projected value for that?
40,000.
And the misstatement then would be 10,000, and that's an unhappy coincidence. For that, should change that. But those two are not the same 10,000. It's just a unhappy coincidence. Okay, next one.
20,000?
This particular statement would be 30. 3 is a wacky one.
You ignore this one.
Yep, very, very good. This is an understatement. understatement and it is ignored. There is no misstatement. Okay, so projected misstatement would be all three of those together. All two of those together, I guess, would be a better way to put it. So was it 40,000? So this is our projected misstatement. And this is our best estimate. Misstatement. Okay, so okay. Basic precision. This is our formula for basic precision. Yeah. Our interval times the reliability factor, and the reliability factor at 0. We'll talk about in a second. Let me show you what this is on our so this is the basic precision. That's if we had no errors. If we don't have any errors, no misstatements, it's still a sample, so we still might be off by some, right? There's a possibility, I think this is at 5%, at 5%, there's still a possibility that these would be off by, some amount, even if we didn't find anything, because we didn't take 100%. And then we'll find out that these are the incremental, which we'll talk about later. So anyway, so the basic precision is this one. So the basic precision says, okay, if we have no errors, it's still possible it's misstated by something. So how much? Okay, so the interval is how much? Anyone?
50,000.
Yep. So the interval, I'm going to do something here. 50,000. Times our reliability factor. Okay, we got to come down here to our table. Put that thing on. You know what? Well, we can either go up or down. At the very end of this thing, I think I have all the stuff at the very end of this calculations. But it's the same reliability factor that we have here. So this is we're at 5%, so it's 1.6. Yeah, no. That's marked, that's the evil mark at 5%. Sample size and for basic precision. And I don't know why, oh wait, I do have it down here. I don't have the wording for it, but at 5%. And then it's at row 0. We're saying 0. And you think about that, you know, this is if we have no misstatements. You know, kind of like this. Oops, this. We have no misstatements, so it'd be at 0 misstatements. So at 0 misstatements, so that would be 3.
150,000.
So this would be an additional amount, and again, this is there because even if we have nothing wrong, it's a sample. There still could be things that are in, unless we take 100%, it's okay, now for the one I hate going through the most. The incremental allowance. And this incremental factor is the one that I don't like doing. I don't like it so much I'm gonna cry. All right. We have to go down to the incremental table. And we're at 5%. So we're gonna take for overstatement 1 versus overstatement 0. We're gonna take the difference between those two, minus 1, that's just the formula. And this will give us our incremental factor. Yes, this is tedious, but it's the way it is. So I take 4.75. Minus the overstatement at 0 is 3. Minus 1 equals 0.75. Just for kicks, we'll go through the next one, and the next one, we'll worry about this misstatement thing in a second. So the incremental factor for the second one would be risk of increment, so 6.3 minus 4.5. Minus 1 is Mr. Calculator. Oh, turn on Mr. Calculator first. $4.75 minus 1.
0.55.
Yep. Okay. And I don't think we need this third one. We'll do the third one just for.
$0.46.
Okay, so these are the incremental factors that we would use. Now, here's what I don't like. The obvious question is, well, why don't we just, since we know what they are, I mean, you can get all those right from this table. Why don't we just have an incremental factor table, right? You know, at 5%, here's the incremental factor. And we could, and if I ever write an auditing book, it's gonna have those in there. Yeah, we can use this table to get there, but you know, we could just have an incremental factor table, would also be a way. Okay, so what do we do with this? Well, we go up here, we're looking for our misstatements, and we're gonna take the largest ones first. So it's gonna go in descending order. Is that right? Yeah, so I'm largest to smallest. So the largest first. So our largest misstatement is what?
The 30,000.
Yep. $30,000.75 is. $22,000. I didn't go through these up here, I realized. Incremental allowance should be yes. This would be yes. These two are both smaller. This one doesn't hit zero. It doesn't like, it wouldn't matter anyways. But it's no, because this wasn't misstated. But even if you did, you know, 0 times any, you know, if you plug that in, it wouldn't be wrong. Put 0 in here, it's not gonna. No need to put it in. Okay, so the second largest one is the 10,000. 10,000. 5,500. So these will be our incremental allowances. Uh, 22,500 plus 55 is 27. 28,000. Okay. Okay, so the upper limit is way off the page now. The get us back on. Upper limit. So upper limit will be all three of these together. A, B, and C together. Maybe I'll copy these. So our upper limit will be $218,000. I think that's right. $190 plus 20, yeah, I think that's it. So this would be our upper limit. This is what we would be our best, well, this is what we'd use to determine whether we thought that the books were misstated. We would use this as the amount that we would allow for. So, how big was this thing? How big is it? So the book value of the accounts receivable is 6 million. It's off by 218,000. Judgment calls, whether that is material or not. Our best estimate is that it's off by 40,000. Because this is a sample, it could be off by as much as 218. So this is what this would look like. That's 6 million. We said that our best estimate is that it's off by 40,000. The basic precision was 150,000. And the incremental was it 28,000? So what we're saying is the upper limit is the 40 plus that, which is 218,000. $28,000, $150,000, and $40,000. So this is the projected mistake. We didn't get the projected mistake. We'll give it a color. We'll give it pink. Ooh, that didn't work out. What a better pink? Try a different pink. You can't see that's a 40,000. Smushed my writing. All right. Any question on that? Let's stop here. We'll pick this up next time. Oh. We'll do this one next time, and we'll also talk about some things later on down here. But so let's stop right here. Now, so you won't have anything to turn in this week except for the exam. Some of you have already, that's not me. Some of you have already turned in the exam. So obviously, so you've turned it in twice. But yeah, so if you've already turned in the exam, you don't have anything to turn in this week. But if you do, we'll turn in this. We will turn in what we just did, but we'll turn it in and finish it. So make sure you get the test in the chapter 3. I think month to date with the grading. So I think if anything is in there, I think it should be graded. But maybe I did. But anyway, it's most of the stuff in there is graded. And see if you can get if you have any questions on the exam. 3. Any questions on the exam? Don't say anything. All right, well, 8 minutes early. So we will call it a night. Any other questions? Any questions at all? None? All right, have a good evening.
Have a good evening,
Yeah.
Professor.
Have a good one.
Professor.
See you next week.